Flosstube friends, welcome back to the channel. I have finally mapped out my stitching plans for 2025. I've got some exciting projects lined up with a mix of whips, so some that have been in the making for longer than they should have been, and some that are new and I'm focused on now. So if you fancy finding out what my plans are for 2025, grab your favourite cup of tea, get comfy, and let's dive into the stitching plans for the year ahead. So before I actually get going on the plans for 2025, I need to share my exciting news with everyone so that when I start sharing my plans, you will understand why this one isn't even being mentioned. And that is because finally, to the wire, people. Today is the 31st of December. I'm recording this video on the 31st of December. It's late afternoon. I have finally completed Evening in the Park. Evening in the Park is completely stitched, it's completely beaded, and it has all been done in 2024. Let me show you now that it's all finished. Here she is in all her glory. Let me scoot that bit up. Completed and done. And what can I say? I cannot be more joyful right now. I'm like, I honestly wasn't sure I was going to make it because the beading did seem to want to go on forever and ever. I mean, the twinkles and the sparkles. Look at the beads. It's just adorable. I love this. She is, I mean, it's been a labour of love, admittedly. It's been one of those projects that has been in the whip list on a journey with us all for so long, and now finally it's done. And I have a very strange feeling now because I'm like, I'm sort of overly happy that it's complete, but then there's like a little touch of sadness in my heart that it is done and that we won't be stitching on it, and it won't be one that gets shown because it will be hanging on a wall instead. I know that there's a plus side to this, but this has so many memories for me. I mean, I'm going to try, if people are interested, I'm going to try and do a close-up and personal with this before it goes off to the framers. So if you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments below. But for me, there's so many memories in here. Yeah. It needs its own designated video to even talk about it, but for me, I was stitching on this when I had Chester, my first little Cavalier. I was stitching on this when I had Fudge. I was stitching on this when we had little baby Coda, and I've been stitching on this with the two rogues, Honey and Bonnie, who are currently sitting scratching at the door because that's just what they do. But yeah, I would like to do a dedicated video on this one so we can get a bit more close up and personal, because you just cannot do it justice just overhead like that. So yeah, I'm over the moon with how it's come out, and the fact that for the amount of years that I've been stitching on this piece, and the fact that it wasn't that long ago that I really didn't think we was going to make it. I really didn't. You know, I said I was going to, and then I wasn't sure. And then the community came to my aid. So for all of those that came to the retreats that happily and willingly stitched me a tree to save me from it, it would not be without those people. Because I'll guarantee you, had I had to have stitched all those trees by myself, this certainly wouldn't have been on the finish list for the end of the year, because there is no way I would have got all of those trees done by the end of the year. So yeah, I have a huge thanks that needs to go out to the community of people that helped with the trees, also with the community for the people that spurred me on when I, you know, didn't think that I was ever going to get the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, I am so happy right now, so happy. But because of that, because of our finish, Evening in the park is not in the plans. Not even beading is in the plans because it is done. The only thing that's dedicated to evening in the park in 2025 is maybe a dedicated video if you would like to see one. So if you would like to see one, drop me a little note in the comments below and we can do a close-up and personal on that. So plans for 2025. I think we've got it shaped, she says. Famous last words. I think I have this shaped out. So time is always my biggest challenge. So my 2025 plans have been shaped by reflecting on what worked and what didn't work this year. Now, planning for me is all about being flexible and being able to adjust as life changes, because my life changes a lot. And knowing that what doesn't work now might be perfect in the future. Just because it doesn't work now doesn't mean that it won't work. The idea is to make a strong outline but remain open to the adjustments and changes in life. If a plan or method isn't working, I'll change it without feeling guilty. After all, this is my hobby and journey, and stitching is meant to be enjoyable. It's not meant to be a chore. So with all that said, let's get into the heart of my whips. The whips that I'll be focusing on 2025. These are the projects that I plan to take center stage. Yeah, center stage this coming year, either as a focus for a finish. So the aim of the game there is that it either finishes in 2025, if it's doable, or at least makes significant progress. That's where my mind is right now. So the projects that I will be taking into 2025. So much the same as 2024. I have been a little ruthless. Last year I took 16 projects in from the year before. I carried over and the rest of them went up into the cupboards up above. This year I'm doing something very, very similar because it worked for me. I didn't have too much procrastination to do as to what I've got around me and what I could stitch. By reducing the numbers down, it did make me sort of like hone in a little bit more, as well as the fact that I've basically honed in massively on Evening in the Park. So this year we're doing the same thing. So I'm limiting the number of active whips. The rest of them are going into the snooze cupboards above. So the ones that made the cut for 2025, she says, finally, we have Alternative Reality, of course, designed by Heaven and Earth Designs, Josephine Wall. This is now my oldest whip, I think. It started on January the 1st, 2016. It's being stitched on a 25 count easy guide. I say that it's an easy guide, but the guide's disappeared as it's that old. It's being stitched 1/1 full cross. Now, this only got 8 days in 2024. And when I looked on Pattern Keeper, the stats say that I am 27.83% completed. That's a total stitches of 119,200, of which I've only stitched 33,174. So this is my oldest whip, and it's going to be making its 9th anniversary in 2025. So in 2024, I only stitched on this for 8 days. I need to do better. Way better. Full coverage is not something I can take on the train and stitch as part of my commute, which I have to say is where most of my stitching is happening these days. This year I'm determined to move this project closer to completion and bring it to life, so to speak. So now to finish this by the end of 2026 with the current stats would equate to, this is just give you a little snippet of what I've looked into. If I wanted to complete this by the end of 2026, that equates to 827 stitches per week. That is 118 stitches daily to complete it by December 2027. Whilst it's very unlikely to happen, it does give me the numbers. I liked the idea of knowing what the numbers would need to be if I wanted to. So then I was like, well, maybe what about if I wanted to try and get it to 50% complete? 50% complete would need 505 stitches a week or 2,166 stitches per month. Now, I would, if I was a monogamous stitcher, I would be in the running with that, but I'm not. So I don't think that's going to happen. But it's great to know those stats and those numbers, because I like to know the numbers. I mean, it makes me really appreciate that that's not going to happen. But purely based on that, I have a rough idea, depending on how much I stitch on this, how much I'm likely to get done in 2025. So the next project that is definitely coming with us into 2025 is my lovely Afghan family farm by Whipgo. This one was started on the 17th of September 2023. It's being stitched on an 18 count fireside. The threads used is DMC thread, of which is 4/2, so that's 4 strands of floss over 2 fabric threads. This one was worked on, so the stats for this one were 19 days in 2024. So it did get some touches. This project exudes warmth and coziness. It's like wrapping up in a cozy blanket each time I pull it out. But there comes the issue with summer stitching. Each square is like a little mini finish, so I love that. Some squares have less stitches than others, which I love, because sometimes if I know I'm not going to stitch very much, I'll just pick a square that hasn't got too much to stitch. Now, I can't wait to see how this grows over the year, because I think it's going to come out more and more, because I do actually get very drawn to it. I might have to look at ways to hook up the material when I'm trying to stitch on it in fair weather, because otherwise I'm going to overheat. And again, it's not a project for the train. So this would have to be sort of a based at home type stitching. But the fact that I can get little mini finishes out of that sometimes just gives me the little kick that I need. So the next whip that we're taking into 2025 is my Deer Creek stocking, designed, I can't remember what, I think it's, I can't remember the artwork, but it's a heaven and earth design. I started this on the 6th of May 2023, and it's being stitched on an 18 count magic guide. The threads used are DMC stitched 2/2. I stitched on this 6 days in 2024. This is a joy to stitch on. I love the 18 count fabric, big stitches, and great for my eyes in the evenings. I am experimenting with a modified non-parking method with this project, but still maintaining my block type stitching. The approach is still to fill the block in, but run the thread until it's finished in the surrounding area where the colour's needed. I finish that thread, go back to the actual block and pick up the next colour and repeat until the block is done. So I'm working in block still, so that each time I'm completing the block. This then also gives me less to stitch in the other blocks. So when I get there, it helps me with like guide markers as to where I am, because otherwise I can see me sort of losing where I am. But that said, I am not going cross country. There's no cross country stitching. I daren't venture that far with the thread. So far it's working well, and I think I'll try this method with projects like Alternative Reality and see if it would be the same, or if it would work the same, because at the moment it is working on Deer Creek. So this one, if you like, is the trial and the tester. If I like it, I might adapt some of my other full coverages to do the same thing. So stats. So Deer Creek stocking is a total of 101,272 stitches. I've completed, drum roll, 2.06%, and I've stitched 2,086 stitches. Yeah, not that many. So to get this whip, say 50% complete by the end of December of 2025, I would need to stitch 133 stitches per day. That's 929 stitches per week. and a whopping 3,980 stitches per month. No, that won't be happening. But imagine if I could. I love it when I put these stats out because it was like, wow. Just think if I had all the time in the world, that's what I could do. How nice would that be for me? But it gives me an idea of, you know, my stocking obviously is not going to be completed until at least 2027 or somewhere around there. We'd like to think. But then looking at sort of how long some of my whips have been in the whip cupboard for, I shouldn't say those sort of things, should I? So the next project that we are going to be dragging with us into 2025 is one that I didn't think was going to get in, and that is Halloween Quaker by Leela Studios. This one was started on the 22nd of October 2022. It's being stitched on a fabric 40 count Newcastle linen, hand dyed by me. The threads used, I think, are all the specialty threads. I think I might have changed one or two, but I'll need to say as we go through the course of 2025. So the stats for this was 0 days stitched in 2024. This didn't get stitched at all, even though it was in the allowed selection. So this is a very popular design by Leela Studios, and rightfully so, because it is lovely. It's just a shame I picked such a high count on the fabric, but I didn't want a huge piece. So the 40 count, it needs to stay. It has to stay. This will be my first actual Halloween project. This was a totally neglected piece for 2024. So we're going to dust it off, and with guidance from my daughter, it needed to be stitched because she likes this one. That was Lauren's idea. So again, another big project. So it's all about pushing it along and not focusing on a finish. But it is coming out to play in 2025. So the next project that we are going to be dragging, kicking and screaming into 2025 is my Hade, My Life is an Open Book in Paris artwork by Amy Stewart. I started this one back on the 9th of September 2019. It's being stitched on a 25 count magic guide, 1/1 full cross. This is a bookmark size, so it's not a full size. It's a skinny little one. This one was in the snooze cupboard in 2024. So this one is going to be like a blast from the past. I started this piece as part of the full coverage for the beginner series of videos that I did. This was another one where I didn't really stitch on it much. Given it was smaller, I decided it needed to come back out this year. So how I fare, we don't know yet, because this one hasn't been stitched on for over a year. The stats for this one, so the total stitches is 35,310, which is not a very big project really in the grand scheme of things. I've completed 5,468 stitches, which is a total of 15.49% complete. So in my view, I was like, it's already 15% done. Against all the other full coverages that I've got, this is probably one of the ones that's further along. So to fully complete by December the 31st, 2025, I would need to stitch 82 stitches a day. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Which is 571 stitches per week and 2,446 stitches per month. Now, if I was a monogamous stitcher, that would be very doable, but I'm not. So, to reach 50% completion by December 31st, I would need to stitch 33 stitches a day, which is 233 stitches per week and only 999 stitches a month. Now, this would be more doable if it was the only thing that I was stitching on. And it's a shame that it's one of those projects that can't go on the train, because do you know what? At those numbers, if I stitched that on the train on my commute every day, I would do more than the allocation per day, because it would only need 33 stitches per day. And if I commute into London, say 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, I would get way more than 33 stitches a day. But the problem is it is a full coverage. It's not something I can take on the train with me. So with all those numbers there, I still am not going to be able to achieve it, because I'm not going to come home every day and stitch 33 stitches on this project to have it done by the 31st, or to have it 50% done by the 31st of 2025. But it is food for thought when I sit there and think, well, you know, if it only needs 33 stitches a day, that's 999 stitches a month. Depends on how I rotate in the month, whether I can actually say to myself, well, you know, if that came out to play, I don't know, for a week every month, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? You can see where I'm already sort of planning and mapping out what's going to happen. Although my life never plans out or maps out in this way, but it's nice to have this plan so that I've got like something to steer towards. So the next project that is going to be coming with us on the ride in 2025 is Maiden of Tubbataha. This is a Bella Filipina design. It's being stitched on a 28 count Lugana in the colourway Atlantis by Pulse Stitches. I started it in July 2022, and this one got stitched on 9 days in 2024. And I must say, I fell in love with this one when I first saw it. The colours are the kind of thing that I love, and I love the bling. She's going to look stunning in my bedroom when she's completed. She's on my focus on a finish list. Now, I hadn't said anything about focusing on a finish, but everything that I've allocated for this 2025, there are certain projects that I'm having focusing on a finish. That doesn't mean necessarily finishing in 2025, but they're going to have a lot of pushing for progression. So even if it's not finished, it needs to be way further along. This one, do you know what? The more I look at it, the more I'm like, well, you know what? If I actually pulled this out a bit more regularly through the course of the year, this one could actually be finished by the end of the year. So bit of food for thought for me on that. So I plan to use her for my commute, so she can go on the commute, because she's quite blocky stitched. There's lots of block colours, and at retreats as well, because again, this is a great option for doing her at retreats, and I really do want to get her done for 2025. That would be lovely. The next project that's going to be coming with us in 2025 is my stitching Gnomes. The designer is Soda Stitch, and this one is being stitched on a 28 count Lugana by Chromatic Alchemy. I started this one on the 7th of February 2024, so this was only started this year. And this got 25 days worth of stitching in 2024. So it is new for this year, but stitched big guns on this. And I used it for my commuting stitch because it's small enough. I do seem to get more commuting stitching than I realised. So the decision has been made that I will stitch the rest of the last gnome on the train. And then when I get to the cotton ball at the top, which I plan to do with the French knots, I will do at home, because I can't do French knots on a train. I better have amazing French knots at the end of this piece, because that's a lot of French knots. Next we have Welcome to the North Pole, designed by Primrose Stitches. It is on a 28 count Lugana in the colourway Leo, and the fabric is by Sparklies. I started this one on the 19th of October 2024, and this one got 19 days worth of stitching in 2024. So again, this one's new for this year. I loved working on this. The colour, the festive feel was just like everything I was looking for. Just wish that I had a magic extra set of hands to stitch it, because there's a lot of it. Again, this was mostly done on commute stitching, and although I love it, I think this is going to be one of those projects that I'll only get a feeling to stitch when the season is coming up. So I'm in no rush to finish this one. I want to try and keep my attention to the other older focused finished pieces, but this could come out to play on the train here and there in the year, most likely towards the end of the year when the winter comes. So the next project we are moving into 2025, of course, is my lovely Winter White Santa. This is a Mirabilia. This one is being stitched on a 28 count Lugana in the colorway Tempest by Chromatic Alchemy. I started this one on the 15th of October 2017. I know. The stats for this one, this got 10 days worth of stitching in 2024. Now, he is gorgeous and he should have been completed years ago. 7 years is unacceptable, people. What can I say? Unacceptable. Everything about him is gorgeous. I need to re-kit him with my new way with the thread drops and have him as a train project. It's just going to have to happen. I can see with a little more time and affection, he could be finished by or close. I don't given that I put myself under pressure with being in the park, I'm not sure I'm ready to do that again. So he should be finished or close to finished by December 2025. If I put my mind to it and I don't get distracted by the next new shiny thing, he is on the hit list for the focus on a finish, and I will have to see where we are on him mid-year. So make sure to remind me if you don't see him in any monthly updates by, say, the end of the first quarter, give me a nudge, because I've forgotten about him. And yeah, you might actually help keep me on track here. So I'm hoping on you guys here. So next, what have we got? We have the Ornament Merry. So this is a Mill Hill design. The fabric is perforated paper. I started this one on the 11th of December 2024, and I think you've only seen it in my whip parade. This one got 4 days of stitching in 2024. I made the decision that I needed more little things of my own that can go on my Christmas tree here. I finished my little stocking one in January 2024, and I put the hanger on this month and put it on the tree. It's just there. I don't think you can see it from there, but he's on the tree. So I think this one needs to be much the same. So it's going to get most of the stitching done in January 2025. And then if it needs to be finished off in December 2025, then I'll finish it off, and then it can go on the tree for December 2025. So that will be lovely if that happens. We have got a Chatelaine in the mix. Because Evening in the Park is now done, we will be working on Frosty Knot Garden. So this is again a Chatelaine. It's going to be stitched on a 28 count Jublin in the colorway Star Sapphire. I'm using all the called for specialty threads and the beads. And Frosty Knot Garden is going to be another bit of joy, just like Evening in the Park, I'm sure, but hopefully not as big and faster in the making. So I did do a token gesture start on this back in September 2021. So just the middle, and then I put it back away so that I could focus on Evening in the Park. So as of today, Evening in the Park is done. And although I would love to get this Chatelaine out, I'm not feeling that. So I'm going to take a little break from the Chatelaines until later in the year. So it allows me time to work on more of my focus pieces, and then on my birthday in September, this beautiful Chatelaine will come out to play, and it will officially go into the selection. So between now and September, you will not see this Chatelaine. But as of September the 23rd, I will pull this one out to play. Purely because it helps give me time to work on some other stuff and just take a breather from the Chatelaine. Because, yeah, that was a big hard push on Evening in the Park, I have to say, this year. I also have a Chatelaine retreat that I'm going to in October, so it will be great to turn up with one already started because it's got a tiny bit already done. And then I can see what I can manage to get done. But this isn't going to be a focus piece. This is just going to be joyful process stitching. That's what it's going to be. I would say I'm really excited, but I'm still too excited about getting the last bead on Evening in the Park to be getting overly excited about, yeah, I'm going to start working on Frosty Knot Garden. So there it is for the whips. So 2024, I came into the year with only 15% of my whips, which gave me a grand total of 16. This year, I'm starting the year with less again, so I'm only going in with 11 whips. This should take the procrastination out of the decision, what I'm going to work on next. And it should help to get the focus on a finished projects either over the line or at least pushed really far forwards. So for the focus on a finished projects, we are going with Afghan Family Farm, Alternative Reality, Tubbataha, and Winter White Santa. So they're the ones that I really, really, really want to focus on. Now, I do intend to allow a little bit of flex in my plans. I won't be saying no to all new starts, but approaching with thoughtfulness and limiting my new starts. So on the new starts, there are a few that I really, really do want to start, and I've already had them in the mind that that's what I want to do. So the first new start that I will be doing, I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to do, but I want to do one of the Shepherd's Bush stockings. I really want to do one of those either for me or for one of my family members. So that will definitely be a new start. They're not that big and they don't really take that long. So, and it would be great for a train project. So that would be an easy one to throw in the mix. Also smalls, I will allow, as they can be stitched on the train. So they are fair game in my opinion, she says. And then the only other one that I definitely have to at least start this year is my High Heels Collection 3, as I finished the collections 2 in 2024. This one is the last of the set, and then I can get them all framed and have them all hanging in my dressing room, and I have the perfect wall ready for them. They just need to be there now. So that's what I'm thinking for new starts. Other than that, I am going to be very, very thoughtful about what I go in with. So with that said, let me show you my spreadsheet. She says, handy dandy spreadsheet. I will be participating in Whipgo. I have my Whipgo board already figured out here. So as you can see, it's very categorized as usual. So it's fancy, full coverage, samplers, Afghan. And then it basically repeats itself. So I am trying to make it so that my Whipgo is very much involved with the focus on a finish and less on the just random stuff. The whips, that's it. That's all the whips for this year that are being allowed to be stitched on. Now, all that said, if one of these gets finished through the course of the year, it's looking unlikely, but if they do, then anything in the snooze cupboard is fair game. So just so that you know, because just because they're not in the running now doesn't mean that they're not in the running ever, she says. As I look at heading into 2025 with more full coverage on the cards, I do really need to make a decision on a way of working, both in the process of stitching and the tools that I use. So process stitching wise, I want to look to see if the non-parking method works for me or not, and if it makes the stitching any faster with less color changes, because you're not going to keep changing the needle, or if it's just going to lead me astray and make me end up making mistakes all the time. So there's a little trial and error that is needed to know, but 2025 will be the year to test the theory. So 2025, a lot of the full coverages are going to be, we're going to do a little trial with this parking versus no parking. Also, given that I like digital charts, I have to decide on Markup XP and Pattern Keeper. So currently I have been using both and I've got mixed feelings for both, I'll be honest. So Markup XP, I love the stats, I love the information, but I'm not sure how I feel about the selection of the symbols. doesn't always select or highlight, and I don't like that sensitivity bar that keeps coming up all the time. Pattern Keeper, on the other hand, addresses all of the cons for the markup XP, but it doesn't have the stats that I like to see or a save button, but mostly it doesn't work on iOS, which is a real pain because my tablet doesn't hold a charge. My Android tablet doesn't hold a charge very much. The iPad goes everywhere with me. If I want to quickly check the details or the percentage or the stats, usually my tablet's either out of charge or not with me. Currently, I have different projects on one and on the other, and I just need to have them all in the same place. So the decision needs to be made. So for those of you that use either of these, Pattern Keeper or Markup XP, let me know in the comments box below, what are your pros and cons to these? Do you have a preference, and if so, why? Because I need to make a decision and go with just one, because at the moment I've got, you know, I'm going to a project and I can't remember whether it's on Markup XP or whether it's on Pattern Keeper. So yeah, it's the fun and games of the tools that we need. I wanted to thank you so much for joining me as I share my 2025 stitching plans. I'm hoping for a year filled with creativity, progress, and of course lots of stitching. But before I go, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your incredible support on this channel and my social media platforms. Thank you for your likes, your comments, your messages, your emails. They mean the world to me. This community brings so much joy and encouragement, and I am so grateful to share this stitching journey with all of you. I wish you all a very happy new year for 2025. Hopefully filled with creativity, happiness, but most of all, plenty of stitching time. Let me know in the comments below which projects you're most excited to see updates on, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. I can't wait to see what the new year brings for us all. Until next time, people, happy stitching. Bye bye for now. See you all in 2025.